fact, she has been cleared to play. She has been cleared to play.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. We're taking you inside the tent right now, get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bay. We're proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment and bring in Associate Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, Dr. Nirav Pandya. Doc, talk to me about how long after surgery does it take a dog to be able to run at a dog park? What's the time length there?
I'm going to stay in my lane with that one.
All right, that's
so
fine.
good.
Fine, okay, fine. Let's talk about GP2 then.
Okay.
This is boring, but anyway, core, rotten to the core, I guess. Like, what's the read on this GP2 injury, and if you think he can contribute this year?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a little bit tough. I think anytime an athlete has had multiple of these kind of core muscle injuries, which sounds like GP2 has had, and you go beyond what's quote-unquote the normal timeline, you begin to worry a little bit. In general, if you look at NBA athletes who've had this injury, you're looking at 4 to 5 months recovery, and the fact that he still has pain is concerning. But based on what they're saying that this could be an adductor issue, I think that was the initial report that came out. We do commonly see adductor issues after core muscle surgery, so it's kind of in line what we typically see. And the fact that he's going to have a month or so to rehab. So I think the Warriors wouldn't have brought him on unless they felt that he was going to be able to contribute, even given his history. So could it be around playoff time potentially? Could it be a little bit earlier? But the good news is these are never career-threatening injuries. This is just something he has to address so he can be effective come, hopefully, end of the season, playoff time.
Yeah, and playoff time, hopefully there is a playoff time, and part of that is dependent on Steph Curry and his return to play. Knowing what we don't know about the ligaments that he injured, is that partly why we don't have a concrete return to play schedule for Steph Curry?
Yeah, absolutely. There's really nothing out there in terms of, these type of injuries where you have just kind of more of a kind of a sprain type issue. If you look at some kind of reports that are out there, some people say it takes about 3 weeks for these to heal and then another 3 weeks to kind of get your strength back. So maybe a 6-week time frame, but there's no template. I mean, we know what an ACL, we know what an Achilles is. So I think in general for fans to kind of realize that a lot of it is about, number one, he has to get his pain better. And number two, then it's the ability to do stuff on the court. This isn't a thing that's going to typically cause instability, like his tibia and fibula aren't going to come out of place. But it's all about pain control, and this is an area that can sometimes take a little bit longer to get better, and it's his knees. So I think that given all those factors, it's hard to say. It's really about how he's responding, and when you're just waiting to see how an athlete responds, it's hard to put a timetable on it. Okay,
so Doc, that sort of fuzzy timetable that we're all dealing with, is there even a back end where you're just kind of okay, worst case scenario? I mean, is there a scenario where we don't see Steph again this year?
Yeah, I mean, that would obviously be the worry. I think when you get to more than 6 weeks, that's typically when most ligament issues like this are going to heal up. So if you start getting to week 6 or week 7 and he's still having discomfort, that's when we start worrying about what's potentially else going on. Is there's this more severe does need to be shut down? So I think 6 weeks would be that time frame at which we would get worried. Hopefully, as we see him progressing and he seems to be walking a little bit more comfortably, doing more stuff, that would be a positive sign. We hit week 6 and I'd start getting worried.
Yeah, and that's, week 6 would get us into probably mid-March, and then you'd have to really worry, and especially determined by where the Warriors are in terms of a playoff push at that point. Klay Thompson played a back-to-back, which was pretty exciting. Does this mean that he's now cleared to play more back-to-backs, or is this just a case that heading into the All-Star break, it was a good calculated risk for them to take?
I think it's a combination of both. I think, the risk of him playing it, even if they were going to the All-Star break or not, I think the risk of having something happen on that second night, they clearly weighed and they wanted him to play. And I think the going into the All-Star break does give them a little bit more leeway in terms of seeing how his body responds. I think the fact that they're actually considering it means he'll probably see more back-to-backs as long as he did well as the season goes on. And I think the one thing that's gotten lost with everything else that's going on with Curry and GP2 is how consistent and amazing Klay has been over the past month and a half in terms of both his recovery and how he's playing. We waited for a long period of time for people to ask, will he return to his form? Will he be able to play back-to-backs? And honestly, the way he's performing is far above and beyond anyone who's come back from an Achilles, even Durant, even Dominique Wilkins, and he's thrown an ACL. So I think it's important for people to recognize just how phenomenal what he's doing is in the context of his injuries over the past several years.
Doc, Brock Purdy's surgery is scheduled for a week from today. It continues to be that all indications that this is going to be repair, not reconstruction. But how does it work when they get in there? Is there any chance that changes on the fly?
Absolutely. I think that MRIs will give us a good sense of what we're going to do 85% of the time. But once you open up the elbow and you're looking at that ligament, you're feeling the quality of it, you're seeing if there's tearing you can't see in the MRI. Absolutely. Most surgeons are going to be ready to prepare it and change. So hopefully this is a ligament tear that just kind of came right off the bone, or it's torn in an area where there's really good quality tissue, and you do the repair with this internal brace as well, too, that people talk about. And he's back in 6 months. But if you go in there and that ligament doesn't look good, the worst thing you can do is say, look, we're going to do this repair, and then it fails in 3 months. So absolutely, the surgeon will be prepared to do whatever's necessary to give him a solid arm. So absolutely, there could be a possibility that, he gets the surgery done. There's a report from the 49ers that he had the bigger one, and it's been 9 months. But most of the time, we can get a good sense from the MRI what's going to be, but you can't 100% know until you're in there.
Medically, what would be better? Would it be better for the ligament to be partially torn off the bone or torn slightly in the middle of the ligament itself?
Probably better to be torn off the bone, because you've got less. The ligament basically heals better to bone in terms of general kind of like biology. If it tears in the middle, it's really hard for that tissue to kind of come together. And also, even though you're looking right at the tear, everything around it is just degenerated. So usually when it pulls off bone, you have a good quality ligament that just needs to be reattached. When it tears in the middle, then you're just dealing with bad tissue, and that's where you're going down the route of, look, we need to do a reconstruction, which is the longer recovery.
Doc, great stuff. If you know any dog orthos, let me know.
I'll see what I'll do. I'll send some feelers out
on
that Twitter.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right. Great stuff. We'll talk to you next week, Doc.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, there he goes. Dr. Narav Pandya.